Today, we're going to be talking about something that we are all familiar with, and that's fear. In today's message, Pastor Paul is going to be giving us 2 helpful takeaways on how we can deal with fear. And we're also going to introduce you to some new people that you might meet if you come to one of our in-person locations on a Sunday. Thanks for joining us today, and welcome to SMCC Online. Well, before we jump into the message today, I want to take a moment to introduce you to a few new faces that you might see in one of our in-person locations on a Sunday. Let's join Pastor Eric now.
Hey, it's Eric here, and just want to take a moment and talk about this moment in the life of our church. It's a monumental moment for us. This is a season where we are looking back to all the great things God has done for over 20 years at SMCC. It's also a season where we're looking ahead to the many years we have in front of us and all that we can accomplish together. You know, I envision an SMCC where we are going wider, taking the SMCC way into new places, new locations, wider through our multi-site strategy, and deeper through our discipleship strategy, how we equip people Monday through Friday. So behind the scenes, we've been building an infrastructure to accomplish and support that vision. We've also been building a team to accomplish and support that vision. And I'm here today to just introduce you to some key people on the team that I need you to know. And these are people I'm so excited to have on our team. They each serve a very specific part in the vision of going wider and deeper, taking our Sunday excellence and applying it Monday through Friday so we can gather well and equip disciples well too. So to start, we got Trevor right here. Trevor has just joined our team all the way from Chicago, pastor of teaching and discipleship. You play a key role in this vision. Why did you say yes to this and come all the way out here?
Yeah. I mean, I love the mission of SMCC, reaching as many people as possible. Especially the expansion kind of moving forward with Monday through Friday. Yeah. This role having a big role to play in that. So, yeah, excited to join in with everything that SMCC's been a part of the past 20 some years, and everything that is going moving forward.
Awesome. So excited for you to be a part of owning the strategy of equipping people at SMCC. Over here we have Jen, executive assistant to really 3 positions: lead pastor, executive pastor, and pastor of operations. Jen, why are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, just moved to Utah from California, wanted a change. Big personality, big dreams, and so visiting here, I felt that. I felt like this could be family, and so moved out here. I'm just excited to get these guys on track, to help them, just to help them with all of these big things that SMCC has coming up, really just narrow it down, get them on track, get these things really good for you guys and for our church.
Awesome. And then lastly, Rodney over operations. I like to say we have people on our team who pastor people. We have people on the team who pastor the numbers. That's part of what you do. Rodney?
Absolutely.
Why are you here, man?
Man, I tell you, it's the excitement of just the organization, the orchard that I've been a part of and had the pleasure to be a part of for the last 6 years. And just being a part of this organization and being a part of the excitement that we have with the team that we have put together is just a true blessing for me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about where we're going.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, so be on the lookout for these new team members. If you see them at your location, welcome them in to the SMCC family. And I just want to say this, thank you to you. Without your generosity, without your support, we could not build for this type of future. We could not build this type of team. So you're a part of this team, and I just want to say thank you. More to come about where we're headed. There's more to be done. But at this point, just thank you for what you do. And I'm excited for this team.
Thank you, Pastor Eric, and thank you for those of you that choose to give financially here at SMCC. Our mission here is to help as many people as possible become fully devoted and fully delighted followers of Jesus Christ. And that wouldn't be possible to do without the hundreds of you that give, that help do things like help support our growing staff team here. So if you give, again, we just want to say thank you. But also, if you're interested in what it looks like to give, you can check out those different options on our website at smccutah.org/give. Now let's get to today's message with Pastor Paul.
I don't know about you, but I have found it very challenging in my life to figure out how to not only experience emotions appropriately, not only how to process emotions appropriately, but also how to express those emotions. I grew up in a house that there was a lot of anger, a lot of vitriol, and those emotions were processed in front of everybody else, and they were expressed with volume and a lot of angst. And so being the youngest in the family, I found it very important to keep my head down and keep my heart closed. I did not let that kind of anger and frustration and vitriol enter into my heart. I just closed it off. And so consequently, I'm not very good at doing the emotion thing. Not very good at processing those emotions or even expressing them. And so I hope you're much better than I am. Now, good news is I'm all fixed. Just ask my wife. No, if you actually asked her, she says she would say I have a long way to go. Well, here's the deal. Fear is our most primal emotion. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Not only processing and experiencing and expressing those fears, but to somehow benefit from the experience of fear. So today I have two takeaways intended for y'all. And so those two intentions are to understand how to pray our fears. And so to do that, we're going to go to Psalm 3 and look at a psalm that was written by King David. This is a very frustrating and just a horrible time in his life when he was filled with fear. His son Absalom was pursuing him and attempting to kill him. So this is real. And then the other thing I hope to have you take away from this message is how to understand the benefit of dealing with those fears. And so I mentioned that that David was on the run. King David, if you don't know who he is, was a man that this idea of being fearful of a son would not be something that he would anticipate. I mean, after all, he was a successful warrior, a successful king and leader of Israel. He was a man that was very good at music and poetry and song, and he was just loved by so many people. In fact, God said that David was a man after his own heart. But then again, David did some things that weren't so good. And one of those things was he violated what God said to the kings of Israel, and that is, don't take for yourself many wives and concubines like all the other kings. Don't do that. In other words, be a family man. And that brings me to the other thing that he didn't do very well, and that is he wasn't a very good father. He didn't pay attention to his kids. He didn't do the dad things that are so important for a child's development and also that bonding experience, that relationship that can be there between a dad and his children. Consequently, his son Absalom, the oldest, pulled off a successful coup against David. He was able to rally enough military men to follow him and push David and his faithful military men out of the palace and out of the city of Jerusalem. And again, they were on the run. To give you just an idea of what this whole thing felt and looked like, I thought I'd read from 2 Samuel 17. Absalom went to a counselor and said, "What do you think I should do? Should I just pursue David and try to kill him now, or should we rally more of an army to do that?" And so this is what was said to him. This is 2 Samuel 17. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "I would choose 12,000 men and set out tonight in pursuit of David. I would attack him while he is weary and weak. I would strike him with terror, and then all the people with him will flee. I would strike down only the king, and then bring all the people back to you. The death of the man you seek will mean the return of all. All the people will be unharmed." This plan seemed good to Absalom and to all the elders of Israel. Now, believe it or not, he didn't follow that plan. He rallied more troops together and kind of delayed his attack against David, and that attack ultimately failed. However, it does express the kind of intent to kill David that I want you to see. David had a legitimate fear of being killed by his oldest son. And that fear was expressed in a psalm. This is Psalm 3. And I don't know what kind of person, when they're in hiding and on the run from people that want to kill them, take time to write a song. But that's exactly what David did. And so let's read what he wrote. "Lord, how many are my foes?" That's not a question, that's more of a statement. How many are my foes? Well, there's about 20,000 people pursuing him, 20,000 soldiers. "How many rise up against me? How many are saying of me, 'God will not deliver him'? But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high." I'm going to talk about each one of these phrases in just a minute. Verse 4. "I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me. My God, strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people." So that's David expressing his fears to God. Now, I want to make sure that we understand, the nature of fear. Fear is a gift from God. It really is. This is hardwired into us by God. When there is a specific threat, we respond in a fight or flight type of fashion, and this is a good thing. I mean, one time I was at a baseball game, San Francisco Giants. This is Candlestick Park, so it was a long time ago. I was with some of my college buddies, and we're sitting right down by third base, and there's a left-handed batter, and he rips a line drive foul ball right at us. And just instinctively, again, fear, fight or flight, I just put up my hand and stopped the ball from hitting the guy next to me. Now, I was pretty proud of myself. I've never received any recognition for saving his life, but at the same time, it just illustrates that this is a gift. This is a good thing. Now, that is attached to a threat. That response is attached to a threat. And so that fear works best when there's a specific threat. When there is an unattached sense of fear or anxiety or malaise or trepidation or just kind of angst out there, and it's not attached to anything specific, that's what we call anxiety. And the hard thing about anxiety is it's hard to deal with because it's not specific like fear is. So today I'm going to talk about fear, but to those of you that are anxious, I just want to share a passage of scripture to you, and that's 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. This is what's helped me in my lifetime, and that is cast all your anxiety on him, talking about God. We just need to cast those anxieties, those fears that are unattached to anything specific. Cast those on him, get this, because he cares for you. Now, it's never a bad idea to remind ourselves that God cares about us, and he cares about our circumstances, and he cares about what we're going through. But the important thing, I think, for us to see right now is that those thoughts and feelings are very difficult to deal with because you can't tie them specifically to a threat. That's anxiety. For the fears that we're talking about today, it is absolutely tied to a specific threat. And so, again, this is what David was going through. He was fleeing in order to save his life. The threat was coming from his oldest son, Absalom. So, talk about two different ways to process and experience and express fear. One is to just let it go, be loud and proud, just make sure everybody in your vicinity knows how upset you are. And then the other way is just to stuff it and kind of do what I have kind of perfected in my life that I'm trying to work through, and that is kind of just keep it to yourself, push it down. You know, there's a lot of problems associated with that, but there is a third way, and this is the takeaway for you, one of the takeaways for you today, and that is this third way is to deal with our fear by praying our fears to God. Now, that's kind of Captain Obvious type of stuff, but you know, sometimes we just need to stop and take the time to express what we're feeling to God, and specifically if it's a fear. Now, this is classically called a lament. And there's a book in the Bible called Lamentations. It was written by Jeremiah. He was a prophet of God. He was very good at putting his feelings on paper. And so he wrote this entire book. It was an expression of his feelings and emotions that was, first of all, not softened. Some of his questions for God were very sharp in nature, and they weren't sanitized. In other words, he didn't clean up his emotions before he expressed them. He just felt very free to let God in on everything that he was experiencing, especially experiencing emotionally. So that's a lament, that's lamentations, and that's an important thing, and that's what David is doing here. I think sometimes we need to learn how to do this well. And so, when we think about it, he just clearly communicates to God what he's feeling. Let's go back and read just verse 1. Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. Now, David took over the monarchy of Israel from Saul. God had abandoned Saul as king. He rejected Saul as king. And so David is using language that's very similar to that. He's saying that there's a whole lot of people that are convinced that I am no longer fit to be the king of Israel, that God has removed his hand of blessing on me, and now he's rejected me as king. The same thing has happened to me that happened to Saul. So he's expressing the emotion that goes along with that sense that his people are thinking the unthinkable, that God is finished with him. Now, that's his prayer to God. But he also talks to himself. And I think this is important, that we learn how to do this. Even in a prayer, as we're talking to God, we're also reminding ourselves of different things. Sometimes we can go back and forth like David does, talking to God, talking to himself. And this is an example of that, verses 3 through 6. He says this, "But you, Lord, are a shield around me." And I specifically want to deal with that phrase here in just a second. He says, "You are my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord." And so now he's kind of shifting from just speaking directly to God to kind of talking to himself or to whoever's reading this. And so he says, "I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me." So he's not talking directly to God, but he's basically telling himself the truth that the Lord sustains him. And then verse 6 says, "I will not fear." That's a statement, that's a declaration. I'm not going to fear now. "Though tens of thousands assail me." I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys that are pursuing his death. "Though tens of thousands assail me on every side." So David is telling himself this truth, that God is a shield around me, and I am choosing not to fear. I don't know about you, but I know that there's a whole variety of fears out there that can attach themselves to us because of the different threats that we face. And for me, I think that the fear of failure is something that I've dealt with many times and in many ways. I have learned to talk to God and to myself in the midst of those fears. And some of the things I say to myself is, even if I fail, failure's not final in my life. There's a next chapter available to me. Also, it's not fatal. Fear is not fatal. This will not kill me if I don't succeed at whatever I'm pursuing. Again, God is with me in this pursuit. If I've dedicated this pursuit to him, then he shares this with me. It's just not all on me. And then one more thing I like to remind myself is that if I fail, this failure will not define me. I want God to define me. I want my relationship with him to define me. Somebody once said that the most important thing that you can say about yourself, or the most important thing that anybody else could say about you, is what comes to your mind when you think about God. And what comes to my mind is, God is for me. That's what I think about. And so no matter if I fail or not, he's for me, he's with me, he's encouraging me, he's strengthening me, he's sustaining me. All this is open to me to remind myself in the midst of fear of failure that there's hope, there's goodness here, and that God is walking with me. So what did David mean by God is a shield around me? Well, obviously there were shields used in warfare during David's time, and he was a big-time warrior. And so I'd like to give two options to what he's talking about. The first option is the kind of shield that we'll put up on the screen today, and that is a smaller shield that is held in the non-striking hand. So here's my shield, here's my sword, I'm doing combat with somebody hand to hand. That type of warfare, hand-to-hand warfare with a shield and a sword. The other kind of shield is much larger. And again, I'll put a picture up on the screen. This is the kind of shield used by, of course, the Romans. They made this kind of shield famous, but it was also used in the day of David as they made siege on a city. In other words, they took this shield and went toward danger. They went toward the city walls. People were throwing rocks at them, shooting arrows at them, throwing spears at them, maybe pouring hot oil on them, but they had the shields above them and in front of them, and these shields were those shields around them, protecting them from the enemy as they pursued that goal. In other words, these swords were effective when you ran toward danger, not from danger, and that's the kind of shield that David had in mind. So here's my note. Symbolically, God is our shield in the fight, not a shield from the fight. Now remember when he said, I choose not to fear. In other words, he was praying to God, he got perspective, he understood the threat, and now he said, God, you are a shield around me, I choose not to fear. In other words, I am going to pursue a solution to this fear. I am actually going to make a plan, I'm going to carry out that plan, and it doesn't matter how dangerous it is, I'm convinced of this one thing, and that is, nothing can happen to me that does not serve the purposes of God, and nothing can happen to me that isn't ultimately good for me. Now, of course, as a Christian, we know that bad things happen to good people, and bad things happen to Christians. Tough things, Christians lose their lives like everybody else. We're not insulated from all danger or tragedy. But the difference is we can have confidence that no matter what we experience, God is a shield around us as we pursue his purposes and we run toward that danger, that nothing can happen to us outside of God's perfect purposes. This is why it's important to believe in the afterlife, okay? The story's not complete in this lifetime. The story is completed in eternity with him, where God will make all things right. Now, if you're a safety freak and you want to be insulated from all danger and all threats and all that right now, I don't have good news for you. But God is a shield around us, and now he is going with us as we move toward danger. So my second takeaway today is go to God for wisdom and put together a plan of action, then move forward to accomplish that plan. You see, when we move forward to conquer that threat, the benefit will outlast the threat. We'll actually have something for the rest of our life, even when that threat has been vanquished and it's way in our rearview mirror. I believe that one of the greatest fears in America today is our financial picture, our economy, obviously inflation, the stock market is tanking. People are freaking out. I mean, all you have to do is go to the gas pump. All you have to do is go to the grocery store. You know that you have less money at the end of the month than you did just 3 or 4, 5 months ago. We're going through tough times. And it's unsettling, especially for people like me that are about ready to retire or who have retired. People who live on a fixed income, when they're watching their stock portfolio take a beating, some have lost 20, 30, 40, up to 50% of their value. This is very unsettling. And so consequently, it can result in fear. You see, there's a threat, and that's a declining economy, high inflation, and that threat can result in, obviously, us having a fear. And so I gave you a couple things there in that statement. First, we go to God to help us make a plan. You see, a plan is actually something that we move forward toward danger. We're going to put our resources in the right place. We're going to use our time in the right way. We're going to do what we can do. We're going to try to control the controllable and leave the rest to God. And that's exactly what David did. He split his men up into 3 different groups. One group was led by his faithful general, Joab, and then another group was led by Joab's brother, Abishai, and then there was another group led by another general. He made a plan. He split up his troops. They put together a defense for the onslaught of Absalom's troop, and it was successful. He was victorious. But the beautiful thing is he went to God for a plan, then he worked that plan, and the benefit was long lasting. With that in mind, and with the threat that I think so many of us are facing today, that being a financial threat, we decided, just as a church, to help as many people as possible put together a financial game plan. In the face of this threat, we want you to have this worksheet. It's a budget worksheet, so that as many as possible and as many that want to can actually put a plan into place in the face of this financial threatening time. And so we're going to say, build a budget. That is, assign every dollar a destination. That means you need to figure out how much you bring in, how much you earn, any other source of income, figure that out, and then you're going to figure out how much you're going to give, and then how much you're going to save, and then how much you can spend for whatever. Okay, that's assigning every dollar a destination. Now, part of this is overcoming the difficulty of a budget, and that is, the difficulty is making difficult decisions, having those conversations with whoever you need to have those conversations with so that you can effectively put together a budget. So there's always going to be disagreement. Every time you make a budget, you are actually establishing a value system. What's important to you? And so I understand that there's landmines everywhere when you actually do this. The first landmine is, how much do we give? You have to determine what you will give to God. And if you're like me, and like so many other people, the number one fear when we talk about giving is, will there be enough at the end of the month if I give to God first? The Bible talks about proportionate giving. It talks about making giving a priority. But it also understands, the Bible understands that mammon or money is a real threat to our confidence in God so that we can do the right thing in terms of giving. This is, the money and God are competing for your affections. And part of that is money promises something it can't deliver, and that is, it's trying to take away your fear of not having enough. And God is saying, I will be enough for you. And so those two things are competing for those dollars. So let's just be real. The goal is to become a faithful giver. To do that, you become a growing giver. Then one step past a faithful giver is a generous giver. And so that's what we're doing when we're putting together a budget. We're overcoming our fear by putting a plan in place and making tough decisions. And then we need to develop an emergency account. I think that's a good idea. That's just wisdom. And then do everything you can to pay off debt. This is all part of a plan. And what I'm saying here today, now I just really want you to get this. If you do this and it's spurred on by the threat of an economic downturn, you will have a lifetime benefit of this discipline. You see, there's a great benefit to doing this very thing. Working on a budget, determining how much you give, how much you save, emergency account, get out of debt, all of it will benefit you way into the future, way after this economic downturn is a thing of the past. So a little final thought here, and that is the last thing David did was he relocated his identity in the goodness and greatness of God. That's a beautiful thing. And it comes from this verse 3, but you, Lord, are a shield around me. Then he says, you are my glory, the one who lifts my head high. You see, David at one time could glory in or boast in the fact that he was king of Israel, that he was a conquering hero, that he had defeated Goliath, that the people loved him. The people thought that he was a fair-minded and great king. He took pleasure in that. It was his boast. But now he's been stripped from all of that. He has no throne. He's lost half of his people. They don't, and he's recognizing the fact that many people think that God had abandoned him completely. So now he's saying to God, you know what? I am not pursuing my own glory now. You're going to be my glory. And then he says something else that's really interesting. He says, you're the lifter of my head. Well, what that is you've seen somebody that's kind of like looking down, they're downcast, they're feeling defeated. When somebody can come by and lift their head, they're basically lifting their head, looking at them and say, you have value, you have worth, you have significance to me. I like you, I love you. That's what it means to have someone lift your head. They speak words of kindness and generosity into your life. And now he's receiving that from God. And so the beautiful thing here is that God can be this for you and for me. When we make him our boast and make him our glory, he can lift our head. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening today that need to overcome a fear. They need to hear words and kind and generous words of confidence from God to them, that God believes in them and is for them. He's a shield around them. And then let me ask you this question, do you need to make a plan and then work that plan? Instead of being paralyzed by fear, I think the antidote for fear is to actually make a plan and carry out that plan. Do you need to do that? And then thirdly, do you need God to instill in you a sense of dignity and worth? If you do, listen to the words that God spoke to Abram. This is what he said. This is Genesis 15:1, and it sounds a lot like Psalm 3. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Now I want to do something. I want us all to read that again, but this time, instead of saying Abram's name, I want you to replace that with your name. So if I'm doing this, I say, do not be afraid, Paul. I am your shield around me. Nothing can happen to me that's outside of God's purposes and for my good. And then God is my very great reward. He's the lifter of my head. Man, what a way to deal with our fears. Make a plan, work that plan, and then receive from God the kind of confidence that we need as we move to the benefit stage of actually doing something instead of being paralyzed by fear. And that something is replacing our confidence in ourselves to our confidence in God. Will you pray with me? Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your goodness to us, knowing that when we encounter a threat, there's going to naturally be fear, but God, we're so glad that we don't have to be helpless in that moment, but we can turn to you for our help. And we can turn to you for our confidence as we make a plan. And then with your kindness and wisdom guiding us, we can actually come to a place where we benefit from that action. You, Lord, are the one who sustains us during all fear. Now, Lord, thank you for receiving our cries for help. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I tasted the world, seen more than enough. Its promise is fleeting. Of water and wine, I emptied the cup and found myself wanting. But there is a well that never runs dry. The water of life, the blood of the vine. And all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, all I need is you right now. All I need is you right now. Just one thing I ask, just one thing I ask, and this I will seek, if only to know you, to be where you are and go where you lead. My God, I will follow. The things of this world I've counted as lost. I lay it all down to take up this cross. And all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, all I want, and all I want is everything you are and nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything to me right now. And I sing, whoa, whoa. I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God. And I sing, whoa, and with everything within me, I will worship you, my God. And all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, all I need is you right now. Jesus, we've tasted the world and all that it has to offer, but nothing can satisfy us like you can, God. John 4:14, it says, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. The water I give them will become in them a spring of water that's welling up to eternal life. So Jesus, we put our best foot forward today, putting you first in our lives. 'Cause all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, you're all I want. And all I want is everything you are and nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything to me right worship you, my God, and I sing, whoa, whoa. I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God.
Thank you, Eli, for leading us in that last song. And thank you just for trusting your time with us today. Next week, you don't want to miss it. We're going to be starting a new 3-week series. We actually have a sneak peek video for you right now. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.